Have you ever dared to confront the unknown, only to be haunted by what you found? The legend of Bloody Mary is more than just a spooky tale whispered at sleepovers. It's a challenge to the very boundaries of reality. Imagine standing in a dark room, alone with your fears, staring into a mirror as you call her name 3 times. It's a ritual as old as time, dismissed by skeptics and feared by believers. But what if this simple act could connect you to a world beyond our understanding? What if, instead of a harmless thrill, you were inviting something truly terrifying into your life? This isn't just about testing an urban legend. It's about facing the mysteries that lie hidden in the shadows of our own minds. Some say it's a test of courage, while others believe it's a gateway to the supernatural. The truth is, Bloody Mary is more than a game. She's a symbol of the unresolved fears and haunting questions we all carry. Are we brave enough to confront her, to face the ghostly hauntings of our own reflections? And for those willing to take the plunge, there's a quick reward, a glimpse into the unknown, a brush with the supernatural that can change the way you see the world. But be warned, this isn't for the faint of heart. The line between curiosity and terror is thin, and once crossed, there's no turning back. So, are you ready to see what lurks behind the veil of the legend? Or will you walk away, leaving the mystery unresolved, and the spirit of Bloody Mary waiting for the next brave soul?
The room was dimly lit, the flickering flame of a single candle casting long, haunting shadows on the walls. I stared into the mirror, my reflection barely visible in the murky darkness. The air was thick with a chilling sense of unease, the kind that makes your skin crawl and your heart race. As the whispers of the old legend echoed in my mind, I felt an odd mix of fear and curiosity. Bloody Mary, I murmured, my voice trembling. The name itself felt forbidden, like an invitation to the supernatural, a door to nightmares waiting to be opened. In the eerie silence, the darkness seemed to thicken, wrapping around me like a suffocating blanket. The stories of those who had tried this before filled my thoughts. Tales of ghostly apparitions, trapped spirits, and inexplicable terror. Yet, I couldn't resist the pull of the unknown, the mystery that shrouded this urban legend. As I repeated the name, Bloody Mary, my voice grew bolder, cutting through the quiet like a knife. Each utterance felt like a step deeper into the shadows, where whispers of the paranormal danced just beyond the edge of reality. I could feel the fear creeping in, the kind that starts in the pit of your stomach and spreads like wildfire. The legend spoke of a spirit trapped in the mirror, haunting those who dared to summon her. But what was she? A ghost of a tormented soul? A mere figment of imagination? My thoughts raced, a chaotic blend of skepticism and belief. The air felt colder, and the flickering candlelight seemed to play tricks, casting fleeting, ghostly figures in the mirror's reflection. The atmosphere was thick with a supernatural charge, a silent warning of the terror that might lie ahead. The candlelight danced wildly, casting eerie shapes that seemed to move on their own. I was on edge, every creak of the house amplified in the stillness. The legend had always been a mystery, a chilling tale passed down through generations. But here I was, standing at the edge of an abyss, staring into the abyssal darkness of the mirror. I took a deep breath and said it one last time, Bloody Mary, my voice barely above a whisper. The room seemed to hold its breath, the silence almost palpable, as if the very air was waiting for something to happen. And then a flicker, a brief, terrifying glimpse of something in the mirror. My heart pounded in my chest as I leaned closer, squinting into the murky depths. Was it just a trick of the light, or something more sinister? The candle flame wavered, casting chilling shadows that seemed to morph and twist. The legend said she'd appear, a figure of darkness and horror, to those brave or foolish enough to call her. But as I peered into the mirror, the only thing staring back at me was my own terrified reflection? Or was it? The room grew colder, and I felt a presence. an inexplicable, icy chill that seeped into my bones. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination, the darkness playing tricks on my mind. But the shadows seemed to stretch and bend, as if alive with malevolent intent. The whispering returned, faint and indistinct, like voices from another world. My breath fogged the glass, obscuring the mirror momentarily. When it cleared, I could almost see something behind me, a shape barely discernible in the dim light. My heartbeat quickened as fear tightened its grip on my chest. Suddenly, the candle flickered violently, nearly extinguishing. The room plunged into near-total darkness, and in that moment, I felt utterly trapped. Panic surged through me, and I reached out instinctively, fumbling for the light switch. But as my fingers grazed the wall, a cold, clammy sensation stopped me dead in my tracks. It was as if something or someone had grabbed my hand. I yanked it back, heart racing, my mind reeling with terror. The darkness seemed to pulse with an ominous energy, the air thick with the smell of something ancient and decayed. I stumbled backward, knocking over the candle. It rolled across the floor, casting erratic beams of light that played tricks on my eyes. I caught a glimpse of movement in the mirror, a brief, horrifying vision of a pale, gaunt face staring back at me. The features were twisted in a grimace of anguish and rage, eyes dark and hollow. It was gone as quickly as it had appeared, leaving me gasping for breath. The whispering grew louder, more insistent, a cacophony of disembodied voices echoing in the small, dark room. It felt like a cruel mockery, a chorus of trapped spirits relishing my fear. Desperate to escape, I bolted for the door, but it wouldn't budge. The handle was ice cold, refusing to turn, as if the room itself had sealed me in. My mind raced, searching for a rational explanation, but all I could think of was the legend. How those who saw Bloody Mary were forever cursed, haunted by the spirit of a woman wronged. The thought sent a shiver down my spine, the reality of the situation sinking in. I was stuck in this nightmare, with no way out and no way to escape the terror closing in around me. In my panic, I remembered my friend Emily, who had always been fascinated by the paranormal. She told me once that facing your fears was the only way to dispel them. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking, and called her. Her voice was a lifeline in the dark, a brief moment of normalcy amidst the chaos. "Calm down," she said, her voice steady and reassuring. "It's just a legend. There's nothing to be afraid of." But her words did little to soothe my frayed nerves. The whispering was louder now, an incessant murmur that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Emily tried to reassure me, reminding me of all the times we had debunked ghost stories and supernatural myths. But as I glanced back at the mirror, I saw a flicker of movement, a shadow that shouldn't have been there. My stomach clenched with dread. "I think something's really here, I whispered, my voice barely audible. She hesitated, then suggested I try something she had read about, talking to the entity. The idea sent chills down my spine, but I was desperate for anything that might end this nightmare. Taking a deep breath, I spoke to the mirror, feeling foolish but terrified. "Bloody Mary, are you there?" My voice quivered, the words hanging in the cold air. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then the whispering intensified, as if mocking my attempt to communicate. Emily's voice was a distant echo, urging me to stay calm, to remember that it was all just a legend. But as the temperature dropped further and the air felt thick with an oppressive presence, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. The room felt more like a tomb, and I was its unwilling occupant, trapped in a chilling tale that had become all too real. Emily suggested I leave the room, but the door was still stuck. Panic bubbled up again, my rational thoughts slipping away. The shadows in the mirror seemed to dance and writhe, forming shapes that hinted at figures just beyond the edge of perception. My reflection distorted, my face blending with something darker, something not entirely human. The fear was overwhelming, a paralyzing force that held me in place. "Emily, I can't get out," I gasped, my voice barely a whisper. The phone crackled, and her voice cut out, leaving me alone in the silence, facing the mirror's dark mysteries. As I stood there, feeling utterly helpless, the door suddenly swung open with a creak. Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. The figure in the mirror moved independently of me, stepping forward as if crossing the threshold between the mirror world and my own. My breath caught in my throat as I realized I wasn't imagining it. Bloody Mary was real, and she was here, her eyes locked onto mine, filled with a cold, ancient malice. The room seemed to darken further, the shadows closing in, the air thick with the stench of decay. She raised a hand, beckoning me closer. Emily's voice returned, distorted and filled with static. "Get out of there, now!" she shouted. But her words seemed distant, almost unreal. The figure in the mirror, Bloody Mary, was reaching out, her expression a twisted mask of pain and anger. My body felt frozen, unable to move or even scream. The whispering reached a fever pitch, an unbearable cacophony that echoed through my mind. The room felt suffocating, the air thick and heavy with an indescribable dread. I felt a cold hand brush my shoulder, and I jerked away, heart pounding in my chest. Desperate, I backed away from the mirror, nearly tripping over the fallen candle. The door to the room slammed shut, and the lights flickered back on, momentarily blinding me. When my vision cleared, the mirror was just a mirror again, my own frightened reflection staring back at me. The room was quiet, the oppressive atmosphere lifted as if nothing had happened. I grabbed the door handle, and this time it turned easily. I stumbled out into the hallway, gasping for breath, my heart racing. Emily was still on the line, her voice frantic. "Are you okay? What happened?" she asked. Shaken, I tried to explain, but the words caught in my throat. It all felt like a horrible dream, too surreal to be real, but the cold lingering in my bones told me otherwise. I glanced back at the mirror one last time, expecting to see her there, but it was just me, pale and shaken. Emily's voice was a distant comfort, a reminder of the real world beyond this nightmare. I took a deep breath and tried to steady myself. I'm okay," I finally managed to say, though I knew that wasn't entirely true. The experience had left me rattled, the terror still clawing at my insides. As I hung up the phone, I felt an overwhelming urge to leave the house, to get as far away from that mirror as possible. But as I turned to go, I caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye, a faint outline, almost imperceptible in the reflective surface. My heart skipped a beat. The mirror was blank, yet there was an impression, a lingering presence that felt all too real. It was as if Bloody Mary had left a part of herself behind, a shadow in the glass. I quickly averted my gaze, refusing to acknowledge what I thought I saw. It was over, I told myself. It had to be over. Despite my attempts to rationalize the experience, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The house, which had always felt warm and inviting, now seemed cold and unwelcoming. Every creak and groan of the old wood was amplified, each shadow more menacing than the last. I left the room and made my way downstairs, eager to escape the suffocating atmosphere. The night air outside was a welcome relief, cool and fresh, a stark contrast to the oppressive feeling inside. But even as I stepped into the safety of the night, the experience lingered, a chilling reminder of the unknown lurking just beyond our reality. I vowed never to speak of what had happened, to bury the memory deep and never look back. But as I lay in bed that night, unable to sleep, the events replayed in my mind. The whispering, the cold hand, the face in the mirror. They were too vivid, too real to dismiss as a mere trick of the light or an overactive imagination. I had called out to something in the dark, and it had answered. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Maybe it was all just a story, a legend meant to scare children and thrill seekers. Or maybe, just maybe, there was something to it after all. In the weeks that followed, I couldn't bring myself to look in a mirror without a sense of dread. Every time I caught my reflection, I half expected to see her there, lurking just behind the glass, waiting. The fear slowly faded, replaced by a nagging curiosity. I scoured the internet for more stories, more legends, trying to piece together what had happened. But the more I read, the more I realized there was no answer, no explanation that could fully account for the terror I had felt. It was as if I had glimpsed something beyond the veil, a world of shadows and spirits that defied understanding. And then, one day, as I was tidying up, I found the candle from that night, melted and warped from where it had fallen. I picked it up, a chill running down my spine. It was a simple object, yet it held the weight of that night, a tangible reminder of the horror I had faced. As I turned it over in my hands, a thought crossed my mind. A terrifying, unbidden thought. What if she was still out there, waiting for another chance to cross over, to reach out from the other side of the mirror? I quickly shoved the candle into a drawer, locking it away as if that could keep the memories at bay. Even now, as I write this, I feel her presence, a faint, cold whisper at the edge of my consciousness. The mirror in my room is covered, a precaution I can't quite explain to anyone else without sounding insane. But I know what I saw, what I felt. The legend of Bloody Mary is more than just a story, more than a simple fright to share at sleepovers. It's a doorway, a thin, fragile barrier between our world and something far darker. And once you've opened that door, even just a crack, there's no telling what might slip through. So, if you ever find yourself tempted to try to call out to the shadows in the mirror, remember this. Some legends are better left alone, because sometimes the darkness answers back. And once it does, you'll never be able to look in a mirror the same way again. As for me, I've learned to live with the unease, the occasional shadow flickering at the corner of my eye. But I'll never forget that night, the chilling silence, and the sense that, somewhere out there, she's still watching, waiting for someone else to call her name.
As we close this chilling tale, a word of caution. If you're ever tempted to summon Bloody Mary, remember the dangers that may lurk behind the veil. Are you brave enough to face the unknown, or do you think it's all just a myth? What do you think would happen if you called her name? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We're dying to hear your story. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated with more spine-tingling tales. Who knows what other horrors are waiting to be uncovered?